tried to brush my cat earlier today, and I think she's mad at me.
Do you hate me? I do it because I love you. And because you get cat fur all over the fucking house.
I also apologize if my hair is not looking that great. It's so long right now, and I tried to style it for the tradition of this video, and it's not really wanting to stay. I don't know what the hell to do with it. Hello, internets. This is Olin from What I'm Listening To. Hope you all are continuing to stay safe, stay healthy, keep those hands clean, and you are wearing that mask when you are going outside. For real though, please, 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 for the love of God, wear a mask when you go outside. It's critical. Welcome back to yet another volume of my Rare and Hard to Find CDs series. It's been a couple months since I posted the previous volume of this series, and within that time I have actually collected a couple more Rare and Hard to Find CDs. Although not everything I'm going to talk about is a new acquisition, some of these are CDs that I've had and they just didn't make the cut for the previous volumes. But I digress. Because it's been some time since I've done another one of these videos, I wanted to go back and talk about what makes a CD rare and hard to find, and then the general format of this show. And also for the new viewers who are, for whatever reason, starting on Volume 4. So, what makes these CDs rare and hard to find? Well, that could be for a variety of reasons. An album could be rare because it might be now out of print, or it was only pressed on limited amount of copies, or maybe it was only released in one or two countries that aren't the country that you currently reside in, or a collection of all of those, or none of them. Basically, there is a lot of different reasons why an album can be rare, and we're gonna talk about that in this show. One thing I do want to preference too, I didn't really say it much in the previous volumes, but I want to say it now. A rare CD does not necessarily mean it's always worth money. When I was creating the show, I was trying to think that maybe a rare CD had to be expensive or it had to be worth something. But I added the hard to find tagline to the title because I wanted to talk about everything. I wanted to talk about CDs that may not be worth a whole lot of money, but are regardless still hard to get a copy of. And my two main stipulations for the CDs I talk about on this series is they, one, have to be official releases. I do not allow bootlegs. Even if the bootleg is rare, it still doesn't count. And also, I am not allowing reissues unless the reissue is also rare. For example, I talked about the reissue of The Replacement's Tim on the previous volume because for whatever reason, the reissue is harder to get a copy of than the original edition. Sometimes it just be like that. Now, moving on to the general format of this show, I will be presenting the album, I will give some general information about the band and album, I will briefly describe the sound of the album, I will talk about the reasons why the album is rare, I will mention if you are able to get it in any digital services, so the main ones I will talk about are iTunes, Amazon MP3, and Bandcamp. And just for statistical reasons, I will be going into pricing using Discogs. From there, I will be talking about what the lowest price someone paid for it was, what the highest price someone paid for it was, and the median between that, how much they are going for on Discogs as of this recording, and for fun, how much I paid for it, and where I got my copy. So, with all of that being said, let's get into it. And the first CD I'm going to talk about today, I have Roy Montgomery's Scenes from the South Island. This is the debut album by the New Zealand guitarist Roy Montgomery. Roy's music has been described as post-rock, experimental, space rock, noise. You kind of get the idea. I would say, generally speaking, it's post-rock that leans more towards the experimental side of things. Not quite like Mogwai or Explosions in the Sky. It's much more atmospheric and abstract and incredibly spacey. The album was originally released in 1995 on the Drunken Fish label, and it was eventually reissued in 2019 by Yellow Electric. Now, why is the CD rare? Well, for starters, This was the only issue it ever got. It was the 1995 issue, and it has since gone out of print. While it was reissued in 2019, the reissue was only released on vinyl and for digital download. And to top it all off, all versions, both the reissue and the original release, were only released in the United States. However, like I said, you can still get a digital version of this album. You can get it on iTunes, you can get it on Amazon MP3, and you can get it on Bandcamp. Now, going into the Discogs information, we will be talking about the 1995 CD release. The lowest price someone paid for this album was $9, the highest was $41, and the median between that was $18.99. Current listing prices of this album go for approximately $22 to $58.44, and most of these sellers are international. I got my copy of this CD from Amoeba San Francisco, and I only paid $4.99 for it. In fact, I still have the original price tag on there. Hopefully my camera focuses. Yep, that's it right there. I bought this copy a really long time ago, and honestly, I have no idea if the album was out of print at that point. I have a feeling it was. But in my head, I had no idea it was rare. I saw it at Amoeba. In fact, I saw it at Amoeba San Francisco and Amoeba Berkeley, and I figured it was probably an easy album to get your hands on. But since it's been reissued, I looked back at the statistics and was shocked to see how much it was actually going for. So at the end of the day, I got this for a bargain. If you have not listened to Roy's music, I recommend you do. It's for fans of post-rock, space rock, Flying Saucer Attack, really anything in the experimental realm. I think it's something to check out. The next CD I have for you today, I have Moondog's Sax Packs for a Sax. Moondog was a New York musician with a very interesting background. For the longest time, Moondog was this completely unknown person who had this really weird thing he would do where he would go out in the middle of the streets of New York and stand completely still, completely silent, dressed as a Viking. And again, he wasn't known as Moondog, he was known as the Viking of 6th Street. It later came out that he was actually a avant-garde classical composer. He had composed a lot of pieces that strayed on sort of the minimal percussive side of things. Sometimes he would be reciting poetry, but oftentimes it was all just very simple, playful sounding music. And this album, which was released in 1994, is a collaboration with him and the saxophone ensemble, the London Saxophonic. On this album, the ensemble performs a ton of his various pieces, with Moondog performing on the bass drum. Now, why is this CD rare? Well, for starters, it was only released in the US and Germany, and it was only ever released one time in 1994. And both the German and the US editions are out of print, unfortunately. And to top it all off, if you want a physical copy of it, you have to get it on CD. There are currently no vinyl versions of the album. But if you don't want a CD, you can still buy a digital copy of it on iTunes and Amazon MP3. Now, going into the Discog stats, we are going to talk about the German release. This is the German release I have here. The lowest price someone paid for this album was $20.79. The highest was $33.71, and the median between that was $29.21. Current listing prices of this go for approximately $30.99 to $112.36, and most of these are international sellers. I got my copy of this album on Discogs, and I paid about $30 plus shipping. Compared to those statistics, that's pretty good. It was the low end of things. And fun fact, I actually got a discount on it. I think it was being charged for about $35, but the seller reached out and said that the little envelope that holds the booklet had a tear, and he wasn't sure how it happened, but he felt really guilty and he offered to refund me $5. So I got it for a discount. But I digress. This is a fantastic album. I think everybody should listen to something by Moondog. His earlier works, like I said, are much more primitive, much more minimal. This is far more complex. It sounds more like a classical record. I would say start at the beginning and work your way up to this material. Hearing the old stuff and then listening to this stuff in its new light is amazing. Long live Moondog and everything he does. The next CD I have for you today, I have the Studio Killers' self-titled album. The Studio Killers are actually an animated band with members hailing from the UK, Finland, and Denmark. The music they make is pretty much just pop music. Very electronic-based, insanely groovy, good stuff to dance to. It's the kind of stuff that you would put on your party playlist to get everybody moving. The band got their attention from posting music videos on YouTube. Their songs Ode to the Bouncer and Eros and Apollo are amongst their most popular songs. And this is their debut album, which was released in 2013, and as of right now, it's the only full-length album of theirs that they've released. Now, why is this CD rare? Well, for starters, the CD was only ever released in Finland and Europe, and it was basically meant for digital downloading consumers. So you can get it on iTunes and Amazon MP3 easily, but if you want a physical copy of this, you are going to have to import it. Unless, of course, you find a seller who's in the US and is selling it, but for the most part, you have to import it. Now, going into the Discog stats, we will be talking about the European release. The lowest price someone paid for this was $10.11. The highest was $33.60, and the median between that was $14.04. Current listing prices of this go for approximately $13.48 to $33.60, and all of these sellers are international. I got my copy on Discogs, and I only paid $13.77 plus shipping. Like I said in the intro, not every CD I talk about is going to be worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Sure, you could drop $30 on this if it's the only person you can find selling it, but if you're patient enough or you are looking hard enough, you might be able to find it for cheap. And I was lucky enough to find a US seller selling this, so I didn't have to pay the expensive importing shipping fees. But yeah, this is a fantastic pop record. Got some really, really good songs on it. Like I said, if you are looking for music to dance to, this is your record right here. The next CD I have for you today, I have The Main Drag's Yours as Fast as Mine. This is the second album released by the Boston band, The Main Drag. To describe their sound in general terms, I would say probably indie pop, alternative rock. They make nice pop music that goes from being electronic to just being general rock. It's a little bit in between. Either way, it's good, solid melodic music to listen to. As I said before, this is their second album. It was released in 2007. The band got a small following because their song A Jagged Gorgeous Winter was featured as a bonus track in the video game Rock Band 2. Most of the members of the band worked at Harmonix, the studio who made the Rock Band games, and they were able to sneak in one of their songs into one of the games. Eventually down the line, you could download this entire album as well as a bunch of their other stuff on the Rock Band Network series, but it was A Jagged Gorgeous Winter that really got their popularity up. Now, why is this CD rare? Well, it actually has nothing to do with it being a sought-out album. It's really not worth any money. It's the problem with a lot of indie bands. Though they had a small following, the band never broke through the mainstream. They always just had that indie status. And because of this, their albums, this one included, was only released on an independent label, so it wasn't quite as widely released to the general public. Sure, people might have learned about them if they played the Rock Band game, but again, that's just a small percentage of people. So because the independent label was based in the US, it only got a US release, and probably because they're an independent label, they didn't have a lot of money to make a lot of copies, so they probably sold whatever they could and then just didn't press anymore. And it was only ever released on CD, so you couldn't get a vinyl copy if you wanted it. You can, however, get it very easily digitally on iTunes, Amazon MP3, and on their Bandcamp. Now, going into the Discog statistics of this, the lowest price someone paid for this album was $9.99. The highest was $9.99, and the median between that was $9.99. And as of right now, there is only one person on Discogs selling this, and they are selling it for $14.78. I got my copy on Discogs, and I only paid $9 plus shipping. But the thing is I had to wait a long time for a listing to appear on Discogs. For the longest time, nobody was selling a copy. And I even went as far as buying this CD on their Bandcamp. If you go on their Bandcamp, you will see a link to where you can buy the CD. And I gave them the $10 I believe they were charging for it, only for that $10 to be reimbursed into my account a few days later, likely because they didn't have any copies available. But yeah, anyways, it's not a very expensive album if you can find a copy, it's just hard to find someone selling it. But if you are looking for a copy, grab it when you can. And if you're not interested in getting a copy, then I at least recommend you check this album out. There's some of the best indie pop music I've ever heard. A Jagged Gorgeous Winter is, again, a great song, and my personal favorite song is Love During Wartime. I love that song, I listen to it all the time. Definitely check this band out. The next CD I have for you today, I have Drist's Orchids and Ammunition. Drizzt was a short-lived band that hailed from San Francisco. The way I would describe their sound is hard rock, really. It's just general hard rock music. This is the band's second album, which was released in 2006. And like the main drag, the guitarist of this band was also someone who worked at Harmonix and Wave Group. He helped develop the first two Guitar Hero games by doing the covers of some of the songs. But not only that, but the band got their music featured in both of those games. Their song Decontrol was in Guitar Hero 1, and their song Arterial Black was in Guitar Hero 2, both of which are on this album. Now, why is the CD rare? Well, for starters, the CD version that you see here was only released on the CDR format, not an official CD release. And it was also self-released, not on an official label at all. I picture it that the band did everything. They burned the CDs, they printed the artwork, they put it all together, and they probably sold it at their shows or on their website. And similar to the main drag, this band also really didn't break the mainstream. They only had that indie status, so they probably made their first batch of CDs, sold whatever they could, and then just didn't make any more. And because they're a US band, they only released this in the US. However, you can still buy the album digitally on iTunes and Amazon MP3. Now, going into the Discog stats for this, it's going to be a little interesting. The lowest, highest, and medium prices for this are all not available. It's likely nobody bought a copy of this on Discogs. But there are some listing prices on there, and they go for between $99 and $403.49. Now, where did I get my copy? Well, I bought it from a third-party seller on Amazon, and I only paid $15 plus shipping. Yeah, that was a bargain, for sure. But money aside, this is a great album. Again, it's hard rock music, but if you like rock music, it's something absolutely worth checking out. And on a side note, the album also features a cover of Depeche Mode's Stripped, which was the first time I'd ever really heard that song. And to this day, I think it's an amazing cover. It's my favorite cover of the song ever. So if any of that interests you, definitely check this album out.
Let me see you stripped down to the bone.
The next CD I have for you today, I have Musk Ox's debut self-titled album. Musk Ox is a band hailing from Canada. They do this beautiful blend of ambient and neo-folk, sometimes dark folk music. This is the band's very first album, and it was originally released in 2007, self-released independently on the CDR format, and then in 2009 it was reissued on an official label with a bonus track. This right here is the official release. The CDR version is also rare too, but we will be talking about this version. Now, why is this album rare? Well, both the reissue and the original were released in limited copies, they were only released in Canada, and they were only released on CD, so you couldn't get a vinyl version if you wanted it. You can get a digital copy of it, but it's only available on their Bandcamp. Now, going into the Discog stats for the 2009 reissue, the lowest price someone paid for this album was $5.71. The highest was $32 even, and the median between that was $21.20. As of right now, there are no listings for this album. In fact, I had to wait a long time for a listing to appear so I could get my copy. And I got my copy from Discogs, and I paid about $20 plus shipping. This is an absolutely amazing album. Ever since I heard Agaloc's album, The White, I wanted to find something similar, and I listened to numerous dark folk, neo-folk albums, and I couldn't quite find something that really matched what that one did until I heard this one. So if you are a fan of Agaloc's The White, this is the next step. You definitely should listen to this album. It is so, so very good. I have The Vapors' New Clear Days. The Vapors are an English band that are considered one-hit wonders because of their song Turning Japanese, a title that really has not aged well. To describe this band's sound, they do power pop, they do new wave, they do punk, they basically sound like the 80s. This is the band's very first album. It was originally released in 1980 on vinyl, and eventually in 2000 it was reissued on CD. The CD issue features the entire album remastered as well as a lot of bonus tracks. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bonus songs on here. Now, why is this CD rare? Well, the CD version was only ever issued once. It has been issued and reissued numerous times on vinyl, but the CD version only ever came out once in 2000, and it was only released in the UK. Vinyl copies, both the original and some of the reissues, are far more inexpensive. This is a very difficult thing to get your hands on. You can buy the album digitally on iTunes and Amazon MP3, but the downside is you don't get the bonus tracks, it's only the main album. Now, going into the Discog stats, the lowest price someone paid for this was $20, the highest was $45.18, and the median between that was $29.99. Current listing prices go for approximately $40 even to $101.11, and all of the sellers are international. I got my copy from a third-party seller on Amazon, and I paid about $48 plus shipping. That's kind of on the high end of things, especially for buying one CD. But when I was shopping online, looking at different sources, I was seeing people selling this album for double what I paid. So the fact that I got this copy for basically half price from those other sellers, I'd say that's a win. Although, sadly, at the time when I was in the market for this album, there was no listings for it on Discogs, and now that I've recorded this and I was looking up the stats, I found that there were 2 listings for it, so I guess I should have been more patient. But you know what? When you're a collector, you live and you learn. Sometimes you just pull the trigger and go for it, and other times you just have to resist a little bit. But either way, this is a fantastic album. Turning Japanese, though, not the best titled song, I'd say is a solid power pop song. The rest of the material on here sounds exactly like that. Very catchy, very fast-paced, kind of jumbled, but also just very, very catchy music. Definitely a band worth checking out. Maybe at some point this album will get reissued, so we're not paying an outrageous amount of money for a copy. Who knows, but until then, I'm glad I got a copy of it.
You got me turning up and turning down, I'm turning in, I'm turning right, I'm turning Japanese, I think I'm turning Japanese, I really think so. Turning Japanese, I think I'm turning Japanese, I really think so.
The last CD I'm going to be talking about today, I have Flying Color's self-titled album. Flying Color was a short-lived San Francisco band with not a lot of information known about them. They only ever released one album, this album, a couple of singles, and a split, and then they were done. I would describe their sound as basically just power pop. Because they're an 80s band, they definitely sound like they're from the 80s. Maybe not quite as rapid as the Vapors, but very slow, very smooth, and most importantly, very melodic sounding music. Like I said, this was their only full-length album they ever released. It was originally released on vinyl in 1987, and eventually reissued on CD in 1995. And the CD version features 3 bonus tracks that were not on the original vinyl release. Now, why is this album rare? Well, for whatever reason, the CD version was only ever released in Spain, and it was only ever pressed once. And naturally, the CD is also out of print. And the icing on the cake is, you can't even get this on any digital services. I looked everywhere. Bandcamp, Amazon MP3, iTunes, even Spotify. Nowhere. Nothing. I will try to leave links in the description down below for people to try and listen to this. I recommend you listening to it. I think it's on YouTube. I haven't checked at all, but that's your best bet. I actually discovered this album through a music forum. Somebody was talking about it, and I listened to a couple snippets, and it sounded really, really good. I really liked it. Now, going into the Discogs information for this, the lowest price someone paid for this album was $18.83. The highest was $44.94, and the median between that was $29.04. Current listing prices of this go for approximately $56.28 to $74.16, and all of these sellers are international. I got my copy from Discogs, and I paid about $28 plus shipping, and because it was an import, the shipping costs were a little bit up there. But like I said, this is an amazing sounding power pop album. The moment I listened to it, I knew I wanted a copy of it, and I was so glad I was able to get this CD. I bought it during the beginning of the pandemic, and since it was an import, it took quite some time to get here. In fact, there was a point where I didn't think I was gonna get it, but it showed up randomly one day, and I was so excited. So yeah, I will try to find a place where you guys can listen to this album. If I do find it, it will be in the links down below in the description. If I find those sources, check this band out. They are so good.
I would share my heart with you. I would share my heart with you.
Alrighty then, Internet. That does it for me. Hey, if you have any rare albums in your collection, I would love to hear about them. What are they? Where did you get them? How much did you pay for them? Let me know all of that information in the comments down below. And also, if you like this video too, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll show me the support and I'll love your face for it. And you can also follow me on Instagram for even more music. I post a new album on there semi-frequently, talk a little bit about it, and it gives you a bit of an insight of what else is in my collection. So, thank you all very much for watching. This is Olin from What I'm Listening To, signing out, goodbye, and don't forget to wear that mask when you go outside. Please.
Kitty, kitty cat, won't you come home, kitty cat? Kitty, kitty cat, won't you come home, kitty cat? Kitty, kitty cat, won't you come home, kitty cat?
I called my man Brett to explain my situation. He said grab a pen and paper, start a new creation. Radio